Hey, good evening, everybody. So, hope everyone's doing good today. Andrew, Vanessa, and I, we are in Nebraska right now. And so, as far as where things stand, tomorrow my dad is going to be cremated. We were going to try to do a funeral for him. Unfortunately, the funeral home we picked happens to be extremely popular, and there's going to be a lot of funerals happening this week. And unless we extend, um, there's basically no way to do it. And also, unfortunately, some of the people who have cared about Dad during his final years, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to make it. So, in the end, it would have been just me, Andrew, and Vanessa. So, like I said, after the cremation, we're gonna, once we get his ashes back, we're gonna scatter them, in a nice location, a location that was meaningful to my dad and everything. And, excuse me, and, then we're just going to take it from there. So, I'm actually going to do this tonight. I had written a eulogy for my dad. I started working on it about a year ago, actually. You see, when the nurse told me that Dad was starting to decline and he had entered the later stage, he was in the late stages of dementia, I knew that his time was pretty much running out. I did get a chance to see him last year while he was still in fairly decent shape. He still remembered me. And I guess toward the end of his life, I guess he remembered me a little bit, remembered Andrew, Abe, and Vanessa in spurts, but it took a bit. The chaplain, the hospice chaplain, yeah, he had actually showed Dad a couple pictures. He had some family pictures, and yeah, Dad wasn't really saying anything. He was just like staring at them. I guess, I don't know if he was trying to remember who I was or who we were, or it was just, I don't know. But either way, yeah, it was a really, really sad time. It was a sad time, it was a tough time. But, Dad lived a long time. He lived to be 87 years old. I'm actually surprised he lasted this long without my mom. But anyway, yeah, so, I was going to read this eulogy during the memorial service, but I'm going to do it now because I don't know what kind of emotional condition I'm going to be in tomorrow after the cremation. So I'm going to go ahead and do this. On behalf of myself, my husband Andrew, and our children Abraham and Vanessa, I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming out to honor the life of my father, James Cephas Wagner. James was born on March 14th, 1939 to J.C. Wagner and Viola Woodbury in Shelby, North Carolina. When he was 4 years old, James moved to Newark, New Jersey, and at the age of 13, he settled in Washington, D.C. There he attended Armstrong High School, where he was active in ROTC and music. Music ended up being a very big part of James's life. Not only would he pick up the guitar and never put it down, but James became a huge fan of old school music such as the Rat Pack, Nat King Cole, Sammy Davis Jr., Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin. Yep, the works. After graduating high school, James joined the Air Force and served for 20 years as an air traffic controller. His career took him all over the country. Dad was stationed at 11 bases, a few Army bases, including in Germany, the Philippines, and South Korea. His first base was Keesler Air Force Base, and he was at Clark Air Force Base. He was at Ramstein. He was at a couple bases that are no longer open, but nevertheless, he still served. My dad, James, he never talked a whole lot about his military career, but he was extremely proud to be a veteran. After 20 years, he retired in 1988 in Bellevue, Nebraska, where he started off as a real estate agent, and he later received 2 bachelor's degrees in business and psychology. He ultimately became a computer programmer and analyst, and after 20 years of doing contract work as well as regular work, he would retire. In his spare time, James, he loved traveling, politics, and watching comedy shows. Actually, every Friday night, we would watch the TGIF lineup, which consists of Family Matters, Boy Meets World, Step by Step, and Hanging with Mr. Cooper. And on Sundays, we would watch America's Funniest Home Videos and America's Funniest People. If you don't know what America's Funniest People is, go to YouTube. It has Dave Coulier in there. And very, very funny man. And, us watching our comedy shows, that was our special father-daughter time. I was actually Daddy's little girl for like the early parts of my life. James also loved amusement parks. You would most likely catch my dad on the roller coasters in the front row. In fact, back in 2014, when he and my mother came out to Langley, Virginia to help out with Abraham, we actually went to Busch Gardens in Williamsburg, and my dad and I we ended up riding every single roller coaster in the front row. And, and so, yeah, basically, when Dad was doing these roller coasters, he was 74 years old, and not only was he enjoying the ride, but he was laughing his butt off each and every time I screamed my head off. He always laughed when I was screaming. I don't know why. I'm not sure if it was nervousness or it was just a weird quirk that he had. So, James, he is preceded in death by his parents, J.C. and Viola, his beloved grandmother, Eva Browning, his daughter, Donna, and his wife, my mother, Marianne. And also, well, at this time, I'm going to give you all a little bit of insight into James's background. So, this part's not easy, y'all. While it is true that my dad accomplished a lot, he also faced some very, very serious challenges. The first one happened when he was a teenager. His grandmother, who he loved more than anything in the world, passed away. It was very unexpected, and my dad, James, he honestly never was able to move past that pain. He was never able to, I don't think he ever fully reconciled with that loss, and he carried that pain for the rest of his life. He was super close to her. When my grandmother Viola was working, she was taking care of him. And she had always said that she wanted to live to see him get married and have children of his own. Unfortunately, she would pass away about 2 years before he met my mother. And during the time that Dad was active duty, not only was he dealing with the struggle of being an active duty serviceman, because of the time period, James dealt with a heck of a lot of racism. Some stuff that I don't think he ever fully talked about, but it definitely stayed with him. And it not only shaped the rest of his life, but also shaped the lives of everybody around him, especially his family members. He went through serious betrayals from unexpected sources. And basically, well, let's just say that it really, really knocked him off course. And he found out too late that making decisions when you're in emotional and spiritual turmoil, it doesn't bring peace. It leads to more turmoil, and it passes down from generation to generation. And that trauma is the trauma that only God himself can heal. There are 7 lessons that I learned from James throughout my whole life. And the first lesson is, don't allow the trauma of your past to become your future. Second, don't hold on to grudges. Hating someone else hurts you way more than it hurts that other person. It's extremely rare to, for somebody to be genuinely hurt by your unforgiveness. Because some people, they know that you don't forgive them, they don't care. But then others who genuinely are sorry, but you're choosing not to forgive, yeah, they are hurt by that. But again, you're hurting yourself more than you're hurting them. Third, don't be consumed by the potential opinions of others that you find yourself making decisions that can cause irreversible harm to yourself and to other people. Fourthly, don't be around people who bring out the worst in you. 9 times out of 10, that toxic individual knows what they're doing and saying is harmful, but they want to bring that ugliness out of you so they can turn it around and make it appear as though you're the toxic one. And James, along with everybody on the planet, has made that mistake multiple times. We come across somebody that is an agent of the devil, probably a brother or sister from hell, and they deliberately say stuff that they wouldn't want it done and said to them, but they'll do it to everybody else all day, every day, and not care. And 9 times out of 10, because we're so thrown off by that wickedness, we become evil, trying to get even with them, or just trying to deal with all the anger and hurt from that. And multiple times, James, he had actually allowed that anger to overtake him, and there were some very serious consequences that, he wasn't able to recover from. Fifthly, never force your will on another person because you're worried about what could happen if a person decides to think for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, we are made in the image of God, not the image of who people think we should be. By interfering with God's call in somebody else's life, you become a stumbling block, and that's going to get you in a lot of trouble with God. By taking over another person's milestones, autonomy, their life, because you feel they should do things the way you would, you're cutting off their wings, and you are creating a resentment that may never go away. It's best to just back off and let people walk their own path, even if it's not the path that you would walk. Sixth, keeping the peace at the expense of another person is for the birds. When you force people to stay silent about abuse or any kind of toxic behavior, or you force them to go along with a toxic person's request, you're actually showing that you're no better than that toxic person. And you wrongly believe that by forcing another person to submit to an abusive individual, it'll ensure that you'll keep that abusive person happy and they won't do anything crazy to you. That's not true. That person is still going to act crazy. That person is still going to, be themselves. And sooner or later, that ugly side's going to rear its ugly head. And that, like I said, that cycle's not going to stop until somebody either says enough or that abuser repents. And seventh, don't allow pride and self-righteousness to cause you to drive away the people God placed in your life to be a blessing. Don't be so quick to believe a bad report about others or assume because they're acting differently that it has everything to do with you. Always ask people for their side of the story before you make a judgment call. And I know I said 7 lessons, but it's actually 8. But with that one, James, along with everyone on the planet, has made the mistake of listening to one side of the story and running with it, and it cost him very, very dearly. By the time he realized what the truth was, it was too late. He did try to apologize to a few people, but the damage was already done. His apology fell on deaf ears. And there's a good chance that those people probably went to their graves hating him. Hopefully they repented for their sake, but one doesn't know. And so, this is actually number 8. Don't be afraid to seek help for yourself and your family. Many people refuse to get help because they're afraid of what people might say. If anyone passes judgment on you for putting your mental health first, that's their problem. If you don't help yourself and your family, those issues will grow into something far more destructive than you can imagine. And those same people that you were scared of, with their opinions, they're going to end up talking about how you and your family should have gotten help years ago. So it's just like, mate, who cares what the neighbors think? Who cares what that girl thinks? If you or a family member is struggling with something mentally, spiritually, psychologically, get the help that you need. And if somebody does, like I said, if someone passes judgment on you for getting your kid help, getting you help, that's their issue. Just because they won't do it for themselves and for their own family, it doesn't, give them the right to pass judgment for somebody else who chooses to do that. So, you parents out there, if your kids are showing problems, don't be afraid to reach out and get help. And if you're like, well, what would the neighbors say? What would my boss say? Well, you know what? Who cares what they think? The mental health and safety of your kids is far more important than what some other person is going to think. So, there it is right there. And so, yeah, those are the lessons that my father James had taught me throughout his life. And I am happy to say that James eventually did find peace in his final years. Unfortunately, that peace came at serious cost, but nevertheless, at least he was able to find peace. The hospice chaplain, told me about how he was talking to Dad about the Bible and, and also like remembering all the times where Dad would play his guitar for church and whatnot. And, like I said, Dad was able to finally find that peace that eluded him for so many years. Which is a blessing. And most of you know that Dad died on Friday, peacefully in his sleep. So I praise God that when he did leave this earth, that it was peaceful, there was no pain. He just basically drifted off to sleep and never woke up again. At least he didn't wake up again on this side of heaven. And I will also say that I believe that on August 25th, 2024, there was a lot of divine intervention at play. Now, if you don't know what that date means, that was the day that that was the night that my dad went into the hospital. He had a really bad hallucination. He was extremely freaked out. The neighbors called 911, and the officers, I mean, praise God, it was the right officers, because not only was dad like really, really out of his mind, freaking out over the stuff, seeing stuff that wasn't there and hearing voices, but dad was holding a gun. And everybody knows that if a police officer sees you with a gun, naturally they are scared that you're going to raise that gun toward them, and they're just trying to get home to their families. Thankfully, he didn't raise his gun up at them. And the officers realized that, okay, this is an elderly man and he's not right in his head. So, let's get him to the hospital. Let's get him looked at. And, them taking dad to the hospital when they did, it actually saved his life, because when Andrew and the kids and I went to see dad's house after the diagnosis, it was a disaster zone. There was mold everywhere, trash everywhere. Dad would have died in that house a lot sooner. I think dad would have died a lot sooner had he been in that house. And he would have died alone. But because of police officers with really good discernment, they got him the help that he needed. And right after the hospital, he went to memory care, where he was very well cared for the last year and a half. And it's amazing how God's hand was in this whole situation, because, like I said, the Nebraska Medical Center, they actually called Andrew first. We still don't know how they got his number before mine, but it doesn't matter, because, we got the word, and we stepped in and we stepped up, and God intervened each and every step of the way. Pretty much from the day of dad's diagnosis to me becoming dad's legal guardian, getting him moved into a memory care facility, selling his house, selling off all of his belongings to pay for everything, getting him out of debt, taking care of his taxes, because he didn't file taxes for 4 years. And, God intervened by placing people in my path to help me through all that. And I want to say thank you not only to God, but to the following. So I want to say thank you to the Bellevue Police for answering the 911 call and pretty much giving my dad extra years in a peaceful, quiet, wonderful place. The staff at the Nebraska Medical Center who took care of dad during those 3 months while Andrew and I got everything sorted out. Astoria Senior Living in Omaha, who took care of my dad and loved on him. And also Endless Journey Hospice, who stepped in 3 months ago to aid dad with the things that he was no longer able to do. And I also want to thank dad's former neighbor, Thomas, for, being a good lookout for watching out for dad's house while I was gone and giving me advice and pretty much giving me telling me the ins and outs about like home repairs, so to speak. AJ, the real estate agent that helped sell my dad's house and ultimately became a good friend of the family. Lee, who handled my dad's hearing issues. All of you on Facebook, off of Facebook, who supported me through my ups and my downs. To say thank you is so small, because Andrew and I, we appreciate you all more than you know. Yeah, we just want to tell you that not only are we grateful to you all, but we love you all greatly. And at the end of the day, James, he was not a perfect man. Not by a long shot. But in the end, he was a human being, just like any of us. And despite his flaws, he had his strengths and he had his passions. And one of the things that I'm going to remember is not only, as far as what I'm going to remember about my dad, not only am I going to remember the lessons that he taught me, knowingly and unknowingly, I'm going to remember him with my favorite memory, which was him standing on the stage playing the guitar for the choir, for the praise and worship team, in his suit and tie. And that's when Dad was the happiest, playing that guitar. I still remember there were a few times, one time in particular, Dad had on a yellow suit, and he had on a black tie. He was strapped to playing the guitar, and there was a song, I Am Not Ashamed of the Gospel. And Dad would just play his heart out with that guitar. And you know what? That's how I'm going to remember my dad. That's how I'm going to remember him. Standing up on that stage, playing the guitar, just being free, being happy. That's how I choose to remember my dad. And like I said, I stopped being Daddy's little girl a long time ago, but I can tell you all in those final days, those final moments, I became a little girl again. And the day before he died, the Holy Spirit told me to call. 2 times last week, I called at the leading of the Holy Spirit. The day that I found out that Dad was transitioning, and then the day before his death, I was texting the hospice chaplain, and I heard on the inside, call the chaplain, talk to your dad one more time, talk to him. And so I did. And even though Dad couldn't respond, I know he heard me. And I also think that when I told him about how my friend Alex and I had this kind of banter going back and forth where he likes to spook me, he likes to spook me and stuff, and then I turn around and spook him. I think Dad laughed at that, especially when especially when I told him about how after Alex had spooked me, I hid behind a door. Alex came through. I jumped out and yelled, "Pop quiz." Alex jumped and then he fell. I told Dad about that. And I think somewhere deep down on the inside, Dad was laughing his butt off. I think he cracked up. I mean, Dad hated pranks. I mean, like I said, Dad was into comedy and all this other stuff. But as far as pranks go, pranks that was happening to other people, he thought that was funny. But if it was happening to him, he didn't like it. But I think he got a good laugh on the inside, finding out that his little girl can hold her own. And I think also when I told him that, hey, I'm okay. I've got Andrew, I've got my children, I've got friends in so many places. I got my work family, church family. I've got my trustee sisters from Japan. When I told Dad, hey, I got a big support system, I'm going to be fine. I think he then realized that, okay, you know what? It's okay. It's okay for me to go because my little girl's fine. She's good. I don't have to, my watch is over. So I'm going to go. And I believe that, as far as who he saw first, I don't know. It could have been the Lord. It could have been his grandma Eva. But either way, it was peaceful. And I'm going to miss my dad. But I'm going to remember him too. And, I hope that I honored him in the way that he deserved. I hope that heaven is proud of me. And I'm going to close this out. And, I hope my dad's journey in the next life, in the next world, is peaceful. May he have a peaceful journey. May he enjoy the reunion with Viola, with Eva. And hopefully God gives Dad a guitar so he can play. So that's the end of the eulogy. And thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And I'll keep everybody posted on how things go over the next couple of days. Have a good night, everybody.